It's Johnny Detroit with my main man Vegas Runner at the Pregame Studios. The other day I did a video with Marco in horse racing on whether horse racing was fixed. So what a better topic for us to do, especially, we got a lot of press coverage with the NBA ref fixing that happened, to talk about sports betting. When you're in the forums, at the bar, whatnot, that last second useless slam dunk, the reference on the garbage ESPN game that only junkie bettors are watching when the Tier 3 announcer says, that touchdown cost some people. Our game's fixed. Before we get into our opinions and what we think is, in 2008, they surveyed around 19,000 college athletes. 1% of the athletes admitted they openly did things during a game to influence the outcome. 2% openly admitted that they knew of somebody who did, so already seeing a double. 30% admitted they bet on sports. So right out the gate, you're seeing that a small fraction, which you have to also factor in. You only need one or two guys to actually influence football, one guy maybe for basketball. But the most important thing is, if you notice what I said, openly admitted. Exactly. Looking in the camera, and I'm asking, have you ever banged anyone beside your wife since you've been married? Not many of you are going to admit and say, yes, I have. So the point is you have college kids taking a survey through the NCAA saying, yeah, I bet on sports. Yeah, I fixed the game. So one, them not being too bright, you got to have to assume that there's a larger percentage of people
I agree.
that are influencing the games.
I totally agree.
On your end, and I'll let you actually finish the second part of this, is, you had really good ties with some of the people that were involved on the high level of the NBA. There's actually some books produced. Those are the guys you grew up with, you ran money for. So, I'm going to save the best for last. Personally on my end is, going back to 2004 area, 2006, I was doing a lot of middling, so you're sharing information. And a guy called and said, hey, the Toledo basketball games are fixed. I'm like, dude, get the hell out of here, fixed. He's like, trust me. He goes, they're intentionally trying to lose, but they're shaving points, blah, blah, blah. So I threw a little chump change on it. Comes in. Calls me a few days later, and then another game. He's like, same thing. It was like they'd set these games up. And it kind of like, show you how the fix works is usually it happens, somebody knows about it, human nature.
Nobody keeps their mouth shut.
They tell someone else, he told me not to tell anyone. I'm sure someone told him not to tell anyone. I went to like 2 or 3 really close friends of mine and said, you got to promise, you can't tell anybody, this Thursday, the Toledo game. So the next level, it was weird, as you would hear, I'm from the west side of the Detroit area, and then there's the east side, and the east side is a little more connected. Mine is more a little open territory. And you would hear that the east side bookies were circling Toledo games. Then it went from circling Toledo games to circling MAC games till eventually you couldn't even bet on Toledo games. And I remember I was playing at a 40-80 game, and like everybody at the table, including the dealer, the dude parking the cars, knew the games were fixed. So at that moment I said, okay, this something's going to happen.
That's when it all goes down.
It goes down. And then, these guys end up getting indicted. They actually indicted guys from the football team. I think the guy's name was like Scooter McDougal or Scooter something from Toledo. Yeah. He got indicted. And I actually pulled up the case file before the video. There was a total of 17 Toledo games that openly were fixed. These guys put $400,000 plus. That was documented or could be proven by the feds that they bet. And they also were fixing races down in Tampa Bay Downs. So here's one isolated incident that obviously, because of word of mouth, people can't talk, came out in the open. There was a movie done on Arizona State, I think it was in the mid-90s, like the captain, the kid was going to the NBA, they were shaving points. So these are just stuff that people hear about. So obviously it's happening more often than not. So I'm going to jump it over to you and kind of just sit back and listen.
To say that it doesn't happen, you'd be fooling yourself.
Right, naive.
Yeah, exactly. But to say that every time a game lands near the number that it was fixed,
right,
that would be stretching it. Right. You know what I mean? Anytime there's been a fix, more or less, a conspiracy involved, when you're talking a group of people, eventually it comes out because human nature, people can't keep their mouths shut.
Right.
with that said, there are incidents that never get out when it's only one person involved, two people involved, meaning a kid in college who needs to make some money for one reason or another.
Real quick, is going back to the Toledo games, if you read the documentation, some of these guys in the basketball team, I mean, these guys betting the games were betting $10,000, $40,000, $30,000 a game. Some of these kids were getting as little as $500 a game.
Exactly.
So like you said, is, from a gambler's mentality, we understand the value in it, but you're some kid, from some podunk town or the inner city, you've never bet sports, you don't understand sports betting, and someone comes to you and says, you don't need to lose. Actually, there was a study done where they said, usually the fixes will happen in games where there's a large spread because it's easier to, one, conceal, and two, you can go to the kids and say, I'm not asking you to lose. You could still win. You just can't win by more than 20. You miss a shot here and there. So
and there you're talking about the players. Now, spread it out a little bigger. Referees.
The most shocking thing ever. I mean, all of the stories that the Arizona State thing. I mean, anyone who saw Goodfellas, in Henry Hill, I think they're fixing some college back in New York. I mean, that was a well-blown thing. The Toledo stuff. I mean, one thing you always would hear from people is, NBA, they make so much money. Why would somebody fix a game? It happened.
It did.
And it was people you knew.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. It's not just the players. You're talking now, referees can get involved, officials could get involved, management could get involved, coaching could get involved at those levels.
A traveling call, a charge that's not a
and
charge.
Even coaches at this smaller, college level, that they're not making $20 million a year. They're not making even $1 million a year. You know what I mean? And could easily influence the game. Getting back to the NBA, that was a perfect example of the Donaghy situation. How did that happen? It was one man who bet everything else and decided, because he couldn't beat the other games or got himself in trouble betting football, betting baseball, that, wait, I can make money betting NBA.
By influencing
the outcome of the game. And you hear about, how great he was at picking games that he wasn't officiating. Nothing could be further from the truth. We all know that's not the case.
Right. You know more than most, because the people.
The bottom line is the only games these guys wanted to bet were the games that he was officiating. They didn't want his handicapping, his handicapping knowledge.
He didn't have his 900 number.
Away.
Right.
He's going to know more than your average. You've been running up and down the court with these pro athletes for so many years. There's a lot you pick up, and he would be an asset to any handicapper, his knowledge. But what I'm saying is, there's a difference between being able to handicap a game and coming up with probability and having the power to go out there and influence a game so that you increase that probability. Because let's not forget, even those games that, Tim Donaghy allegedly, and it's been proven now, went out there and influenced, they weren't 100% winners.
Right.
Okay? You got to remember that. And most of the bets he was making were on favorites. That was when they went back and they looked. And I remember that. I couldn't understand why we were betting so many favorites. And to tell you,
because real quick, you were getting the games. You weren't told directly they're fixed. You were just told.
I had no idea. I'm not going to front and act like, oh, I knew, and I knew there was a ref involved. I came from that same outfit back in Philly that was involved in this. Okay, and I was moving games. And Philly Godfather, actually, I was moving his games back then. And he was right there with this group. That's how I got associated with this group. So, make a long story short, it got trickled down to me betting these NBA games, moving on these games. I saw that they were hitting at such a high percentage that I was betting more money than I usually bet.
Right.
I was getting down because I knew we had a long-term, edge. And I also knew I was fortunate enough, I was able to get down enough that I wasn't being used for middles without being told these are middles.
Right.
Like a lot of runners were being used and they would be betting money and they wouldn't even be on the side that the outfit
It
really
would be
needed.
the other side. They just wanted to move the line in their way.
And I was fortunate enough to be high up on the totem pole enough where I didn't get that kind of action. But to make a long story short, I never knew that these games were fixed. I never knew that we have a ref in our pocket. I just saw that, dude, we were hitting these NBA games like at a clip that I don't remember hitting that high of a winning percentage since back before the internet, when I was moving NFL games and college football games and baseball games, for the kosher kids back then, and BW's NFL and college football. I'm talking back in like early 90s, where we able to hit even near the clip we were hitting with the Donaghy situation. And here's the thing, JD, what you got to realize. At first, most guys didn't even know anything was going on. No, most people didn't know there was a referee involved.
There's a book on all this, correct?
Yeah, Game in the Game. And the story is pretty much as exact as how it went down and how most people caught on. What happened was...
That's what I say, a lot of people
we're used to
never read the book.
piggybacking.
So what I'm saying is, you knew these guys, and, it was funny because some of the stuff in the book you'd say, you would elaborate on a point made in the book and kind of go into detail. So, like, summarize for someone who hasn't read the book, like, what happened, how did they find the guy, and then kind of, like, do a big
Bottom
book.
line, Donaghy was betting into a guy who was turning in action elsewhere. That action he was turning in at for Donaghy was going into the book of this outfit that we knew. The guy running the book knew that this guy had a great friendship with Donaghy. So here's a guy who loses NFL, loses baseball, and now all of a sudden, every NBA game he's giving you, he's hitting 70%, 75%. They realized this is Tim Donaghy's games. This is what I found out later. They knew something was up. They were betting, piggybacking this guy's games for years, without any association, without ever contacting Donaghy, without talking to Donaghy. Donaghy's middleman was betting these games, and they knew that his relationship with Donaghy, they put two and two together.
Look at the schedule, Donaghy. Wow, what an odd thing. Donaghy's reffing this game he just bet.
Exactly, and they knew that this guy's best friends with him, and now all of a sudden he can't win at anything else, but he's winning all these basketball games, and magically his best friend's reffing them. So they were just piggybacking these games, letting this guy bet into him a couple dimes, and unloading everywhere. And I was betting them here in Vegas. And, I mean, this was going on for years before, Baba and Donaghy got together. And then it blew up even bigger. Until that meeting, we were just piggybacking games. And the guys back then, they knew, what the reasons why. But for us here, we were just knowing we're moving these games and they're winning. And then what happened was Donaghy had to get in contact with that book, let's just say, with who was getting the games at the end. And he had to go directly through them. And that's where it exploded. And because who he got together with was with one of the biggest movers, if not the biggest mover on the planet. And as soon as he was getting it straight from the source, he was just blowing it up. And he was sharp enough to keep it quiet, not bragging about it, not telling anybody hardly that these are refs games. But I knew I was moving from more than one outfit at the time. And I was like, nobody's as hot as this one outfit. And that was the outfit that I knew from Philly. That was the outfit that Philly Godfather was working with.
So how did it all come crashing down?
How it all came crashing down was simple. It trickled down eventually. And more sharp guys put two and two together. When they're handicappers, these betting syndicates have resources to do a lot more thorough handicapping than your average sports bettor. When their guys went in and they broke down games, they started seeing a pattern. And wait, these guys are winning, but they're winning on Donaghy games. Now, all of a sudden, everyone else is putting two and two together. And at the end of the day, what happened was the feds had a wire for something totally unrelated.
Reminds me of the movie Casino when they have the wire in the grocery store.
It was
and they're like, and it all came crumbling down because the dude, and they're like, we're on this guy for something else.
They had a wire on it was an OC wire. It was in New York, an organized crime wire, and two guys just discussing, we've been killing it at NBA, and the one guy letting it slip on the phone saying, word is,
they got a ref.
They got a ref. And that's the feds, you know, they hear
High
NBA, they hear ref.
First they high-five and said, career move.
Yeah, we got an NBA ref that's fixing games, and then they investigated it.
You know,
or it would have never happened. Don't believe what you hear, that this went on for a year. This was going on for like 5, 6, 7 years.
You know what would be really funny is say you're the Fed and you're sitting there listening, and you hear, and you look at your partner, and you're like, we'll report it.
Let's wait a while.
Let's wait till the season.
Yeah. Let's at least give me till the All-Star break. You know what I mean? At least give me till the All-Star.
Real quick, is just jumping. This real funny story is, these guys back in Detroit. It's like 10 years ago. They got popped, and it was a federal charge, and they went to the federal court. And I knew one of the lawyers, and they were walking in, and they had these federal marshals outside, and they'd go on a break, and they're sitting there telling stories back and forth. And the one dude, say it's me and you, and I go, VR, who do you like tonight? Oh, you know, I love the Browns on Monday night. I really think, you know, they're solid at home, blah, blah, blah. Browns end up winning. The following week, you know, it's a federal trial, so it's months and months and months. They're on break again. They're talking. Hey, last week you hit that Monday night game, bro. What do you like tonight? You know, I think the Broncos at home. I don't care how many points it is. They're going to blow them out. They blow them out third week. Trial's still going on. They're sitting outside. They're out sitting there bullshitting. True story. The lawyer guy tells me the federal marshal's sitting there guarding the door, you know, turns around and goes, hey, VR, who do you like tonight?
Exactly. Bro,
true story.
To end this, bro, the saddest part of this is that I know a lot of sharp guys that got killed during this time, because these are professional sports bettors, professional handicappers that were doing their work, and they were coming up with great reasons to see line value on the other side. Because remember what I told you, mostly, I'd say 75% of all the bets we were making were on favorites.
That's the thing, is what's lost
Pros
in
are
all
used
this.
to betting dogs. Now your sharp handicapper who's already programmed to bet the dog, now seeing these lines that we're betting the favorite and moving them 2, 3, 4 points, now he's getting even more value. His models, everything he knows about sports betting tells him to unload on the dog. That long term, he's getting the best of it. And they kept betting the dog, and guys that would bump into me on the strip were like, dude, how can you keep betting these favorites? You're crazy. You're going to get killed. That's what they're telling me. They're asking, who are you on? And I'm giving them, they're like, dude, you always bet favorites. Don't you like any dogs? Why am I going to like any dogs?
The ending of the game was already written. And that's one of the things before we close is what was lost in all this is, like you said, guys that on paper technically were right, maybe where the game should have happened, but you know, you can't handicap knowing the ref.
That's why you got to respect certain line moves, respect certain syndicates, respect certain, and not have the ego, not the piggyback. I don't care how efficient of a sports handicapper you are, how strong you think your numbers are. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and there's guys that put up a lot of money and have their hands in the mix. You understand what I mean? And getting it done, whether it's boxing, whether it's NBA, whether it's college, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. And no matter as much as you know, when there's money behind it, you have to respect it.
Always.
And too many handicappers in this generation, these younger guys, aren't willing to check their egos at the door. And I grew up piggybacking. I made my living piggybacking. So I know to check my ego at the door, because I know there's sharper guys out there. And I know there's guys with more money that have the power to dig up some information that I just don't have the resources to be able to do. But I'm sharp enough to know that I'm going to not try to defy probability. I'm going to hop on this and ride it, not try to buck it. So many really good, sharp guys got killed because their models told them there's no way. So what I'm saying is, if you see something that isn't right, be careful. Exactly. There might be a reason behind it. You know what I mean?
Well, I think this was a great discussion. I loved being in town doing the videos with you.
Me too, bro.
You know, I missed the old lady. I missed my kids, but you know,
I wish you were here.
A part of me wished. It's like, I have to tell the old lady we need to buy a condo or something here, because you know, popping out these videos with you and Marco. You know, I've got tons of great feedback, and everyone who emailed, Facebook me, messaged me on Twitter, posted on the forums. I really appreciate it, because when we do this stuff, you know, if nobody cared, you know, I'm not sitting here because I want to feel cool because I'm on a video. I love the positive feedback. I love people saying more of this, do a video on this, and it's a good time.
Yeah, this is like our lunch conversation with a camera.
To be honest, this video is 100% based on a lunch conversation.
Yeah,
we were
earlier
sitting there
today,
talking how a lot of the good feedback we had about the videos we did yesterday.
And then talking about the Donaghy
situation. And RJ was like, ding, 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 ding. He's like, well, what else do you guys want to talk about?
Yeah.
And then he recaps our whole lunch conversation. We talk about this, and we're like, well, we can't bring that up. We can't tell about this guy. We can't say this technically.
Yeah.
But we could talk about this.
That
so,
was, and that's how it goes down. That's why I love it.
Pleasure as always, my man.
Thanks, bro. Me too.
Thanks for watching. Pregame Forums. Thanks for everyone. Take care.